Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Collingwood Bigfooty podcast. And I'm going to start with something a little bit different, a little bit of a retrospective that'll bring us into the present. As we all know, 2012 ushered in a new era for our club. A new coach, a new direction, and a new face for the Collingwood Football Club. In 2012, Nathan led the club to his first finals campaign. We bowed out gracefully in the preliminary final and then embarked upon a small rebuild where we injected to a level of success a lot of youth into the club. And frankly, I personally think it was the right decision at the time. And we have a lot to show for it. There are a number of young, talented players who really are starting to craft themselves as excellent AFL footballers, despite what some may think based on recent performances. However, the issue currently is that we sit 1-3 in a season where we should have been pushing for bigger and better things. So now, 5 years into Nathan Buckley's tenure as coach, we sit with high expectations. We had a lot of positive performances last year against some excellent opposition. But we sit here now, 1-3, at the start of this season, looking down the barrel of what could be a very, very, very long year for this club. Questions need to be answered by the people at the top, people running the club, and especially the head coach himself. And there are certainly questions being asked of him and his ability. Personally, I think that, he needs to be held accountable, Nathan Buckley. I think this is, the buck stops with him, pardon the pun. And that's just one man's opinion. But I'd like to direct the questions now to my guests, my ever-present guests. It's been a long time, guys, but welcome aboard. GC, I'll go to you first. Start of the year hasn't been brilliant. What have you thought of it?
Oh, well, I think from Nathan Buckley's view, I come from it as a Buckley fan, and someone who would love to see him succeed. But 5 years is a long tenure. That's a long time to have your chance. He has to go up. He has to show some improvement this year. The question marks are all over him now. He may just not be a very able coach, as great a player as he was. And with our start to the year, I struggle to see that we're going to have that improved year. And if we don't, I think we pay him out and say thank you very much.
And look, it's often been seen, star players don't always make the star coaches, and for whatever reason that is, it certainly hasn't paid off for a lot of clubs previously. But I think you're right. I'm a Buckley fan as well. You Magpie girl, I'm sure you're a Buckley fan, and we all just want him to succeed and just do well.
Well, yeah, we do. Look, I think everybody's panicking a little bit too soon. It is only 1-3, and yeah, it'd be really nice if we were 3-1. But we've had a bit of a difficult start to the season, and I think the balance of the team was thrown out in game one. There were other issues off the football field that I do think had a bit of an effect on not so much the confidence of the team, but I think they felt betrayed and singled out very unfairly. And I don't care what anybody says. I think that was extremely unfair that the focus was put on only one team. We had some pretty nasty injuries and a lot of unsettlement to the team very early on. But, we're not the only team struggling in the league. You look at Fremantle, you look at
Richmond.
Yeah. The expectations for those teams would have been a lot higher too. And as I said, I just think as much as we would love to see them in a better position, I feel like everybody's really overreacting a bit. That's just my thought, because I'm a big fan and I'm happy to give them the benefit of the doubt at the moment.
Well, let's examine these first 4 weeks, and I'll give Buckley. I give Buckley a ton of credit. And I think the way he handles himself is fantastic. I love that he absolutely shredded Mark Robinson on 360 for what I thought was one of the more cowardly acts of journalism. Just an absolute, shameless self-promotion on Robbo's part, and I was utterly disgusted by it, to the point where I don't particularly want to watch 360 because I don't really want to hear what he has to say. That's quite disappointing, I thought, and it was the worst way to lead into that game. And I think, in a lot of senses, I think a lot of us supporters were happy to write that off as a bit of an aberration. To follow up with that performance against,
it does do a lot of damage to the psyche of the team, I think. It's really hard to protect them from that kind of thing.
Definitely. And that label, I mean, we've seen what it's done to different situations, different circumstance. We've seen what it's done to the Essendon players and how being labelled as drug takers in any respect is an unfair criticism, especially when you've had the confidentiality and the trust that you put into this organisation breached on such a personal level, to be highlighted and to be made as the scapegoat in the face of a drug problem in a code, when realistically there's evidence elsewhere, and it certainly caught them off guard. But we will focus on the playing side of it, because that's a totally separate discussion. Now I'm not saying it doesn't have a lingering effect. I mean, GC, maybe you can comment on this, but that sort of stuff may have a lingering effect. But when we look past,
I would say that what Mark Robinson did was reprehensible, definitely. And what I thought Buckley's on 360, and I give Chris Scott a really big pat in the back, because he was the one that took it to him even more, and he was probably in a better position to do it. But he really showed Robinson for what he was, and I thought that was great. I liked that. But and I can understand that was a terrible thing to do and not nice for the players, but I can't accept it's a terribly much of an excuse for the performance that happened a few days later. I mean, one of the things that players often talk about is when you're out there playing, you do lose a little bit of those outside external worries, and they just played so badly that night that I can't have that the drugs was a significant part of that.
No,
and I think their performance since then has backed that up, because it's been we've looked terrible.
We've looked awful, and if we take our attention away from that game, we say 1-3. In my mind, we're 0-4. I think a quarter of good football does not a team make, and doesn't constitute a good win against Richmond. We looked ordinary in that game, and in honestly one of the least skillful games I've ever seen in my life.
They gifted that game to us.
They did. They absolutely gifted that game to us, and then to come back against St Kilda and Melbourne, who by all rights in every measurable way should be better than both of those teams, to come out and put up two performances like that, it was embarrassing, and it was awful to watch, and awful to be a part of the crowd, because you look around and you're trying to find a glimmer of hope to suggest that, hey, maybe there's something going to go right on this day, and we just couldn't fire a shot. I can't attribute that to the scandal prior to round one, and I'm trying to work out what's caused it.
I'm not making that an excuse, and I didn't mean to say that, but I do think it was all part of. It was something that kind of hijacked the start of the system a little bit, of the season a little bit. But that was just one thing. When you look at 2 minutes out on the field and Swan goes down for for half the season, there were just things that happened at the start of that game that totally took the wind out of them, and that was just one game. But We've had some pretty crippling injuries each week that have decimated the back line, even the midfield. We're just kind of struggling to put a team together at the moment.
And I think, look, there is something in all those things that you say, but I think the unfortunate thing for Buckley is that you can only go so long, and he may be dogged by having a lot of bad luck, but if we don't improve, it's hard to say, well, look, maybe we'll just give you another year and another year because, if it turns out to be wrong, it's too much. There's too much writing on the wall. It's bad luck that he's had bad luck run with him, but we have to improve, and it's a tough game being a coach, and you are held accountable at the end of the day, even if you can't control everything. And he's just in a position where I think he has to improve, and even if things conspire against him, if it doesn't happen, then I think he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got we look at if we even compare ourselves to, let's say 8 to 10 months ago, we ran out, I think mid-July against the Freo team that were running hot, and we took them to the line. We took a Hawthorn team to the line on the 2nd of July last year, playing a different brand of football to the kind of football that we're playing now. The same coach, we were doing something right back then, still with a group of players that were inexperienced, still with a bunch of injuries to the team. Those variables haven't changed, but the performance on field has just been ordinary, and it's been a marked difference between the effort that was put out and even the game style that was put out mid-last year when we were competitive, when we were strong, to this point now where we don't look like beating any. And I genuinely have concerns rolling up to ANZAC Day this Monday to having our pants pulled down by a less than half-strength Essendon side.
Yeah. The other thing with Buckley is because we all love him, we want him to succeed. But if Joe Smith was the coach now on that performance, there wouldn't be any questions about what was happening to him. He's out the door.
Absolutely. We don't have to look too far back. We look back at 2009, and I remember walking along these forums in 2009, and the chorus was loud and proud to sack Mick Malthouse after 8 or 9 years and still in an ordinary spot, and we were campaigning for it. Now, the evidence will say we re-signed him, showed faith, and there was a premiership delivered. But that being said, to that point, Mick had a lot more runs on the board than Bucks did. And there was a direction that was clear to everyone where the team was going. We haven't taken steps forward. We're taking steps backwards on field, and that's the most concerning part.
Oh, yeah, Mick at that stage was 2009, we were a top 4 side. We were on the, we might have got it there as quickly as some people like, but we're a different kettle of fish to what we are just at the moment.
So what's changed? What's different? What are we seeing out there visually with our own eyes that we can say, hey, we can point to that, and it's obvious to us that this isn't particularly going right? A lot of people are highlighting the back line, this zoning, giving space. What is it that you can see, GC, that's really markedly different?
The two things that stand out to me is, one is the deplorable kicking skills in general, but particularly the kicking. And I watched a lot of matches on the weekend just to get that sense of, where do we sit? And every other team looked a bit exciting. They looked well drilled. They looked skilled. Their delivery was just in a different, stratosphere to ours. So I think that's really hurting us, our bad kicking skills. And it may be that then leads on to the other problem is it seems like an absence of direction of a game plan that seems to be recognisable. So I can't see where Bucks is going with what he wants to do with the team compared to when I watch another match, and I can see what the St Kilda are building towards. I can see what Melbourne even are building towards. I just struggle to see what Buckley's building us to at the moment.
Definitely. And as you say, the kicking skills, we have been a great kicking team for the last few years. It's sort of been endemic throughout the players that we've had. We seem to recruit some real good, strong battlers, but the skill level has been quite ordinary. It's gone to a different level. What bothers me actually is the transition from halfback, fullback kick into general play again. And it seems like we just have this hodgepodge of whoever's closest to the ball, just pick it up and we'll kick the ball out without any rhyme or reason. And you think to yourself, we've got 2 or 3 reasonable disposers of the ball in that back line. Ben Reid, Pendlebury's playing out of the back line now, which I'm going to get to in a second because that bothers the crap out of me. But why those guys, the good users by foot, aren't taking the kick-ins and aren't finding a target? I mean, it beggars belief. When you look at the other teams, like the Dogs, they get Johannesson to take 2 steps out of the square, and he's finding a target. You know, these are really simple things. These are costly turnovers, and they're costing us goals.
Yeah, that's an absolute truth. That the one you've said there, our kick out seems to me either one of 2 things. It's look around for a few moments until everything's covered, and have one person 15 metres deep in the back pocket and kick it to them, and then it looks like everything's covered, so you just kick up the line to a contest. And if you don't do that, you just kick up the line to a contest anyway. And half the time kick to the ruckman or something like that. It's just, there doesn't seem to be any plan to it.
I found watching last week, I couldn't believe how long Reid in particular took to kick the ball. Grundy's the same. They wait so long that you know, by the time it does leave their foot, everybody has manned up, and it's just I can't believe Reid, you know, who's someone so experienced as him, why he was just taking so long to move the balls. It was a mystery.
Yeah, so the ball coming out of the back half, and players just seem bereft of ideas. And look, a lot of people would say that that's sort of endemic within the coaching staff and the head coach itself. But look, if we don't, you know, we spoke off air about this. We don't want to be negative this whole time. Let's focus on a couple of positives. We've seen some progress from a couple of kids, which we've been pretty impressed with. And we're going to get the chance potentially to see our first American recruit grace the big stage on Monday with any luck. American on ANZAC Day. Magpie girl, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, look, I'd be really excited to see him out there. I think we all need to be careful of putting too much pressure on him, but or high expectations. But he's been exciting to watch in the BFL. He's very talented all over the ground, and I think it'd be great for him to get a game.
I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. He's the great white hope, and he's pretty much the only reason why I'm going to ANZAC Day at this stage. I mean, what are some of the big positives? I mean, there aren't amazing positives GC in the year, but what are some of the things you identified that you've said, you know what, okay, that's something to take out of these first few weeks?
I think the first thing I think is not having seen a lot of Adam Treloar at GWS and wondering what he is. Now, he hasn't set the world on fire, but you can see that he's going to be a very strong acquisition for a lot of years, although our price we paid for him seems to be increasing now the further we're going down the ladder. But look, I really think, and I think he's got some pace which we really desperately need. I thought this is a two-edged sword because I thought Jackson Ramsey was looking really good before he went down, and I was not necessarily someone who thought he really had the abilities to make it up until last year when he got a few games in. He looked good, and then I thought he looked very good, and he's got pace. He could break a line, and his kicking has come on. So I was very sad to see him go down, but he shows promise, and I've got hopes that he'll come back okay. And Ben Reid is playing, so I'm pretty happy about that.
That to me represents. I mean, I've been so happy to see him back. Intercept marking, setting up play off the back half. It's still going to take him 10 games or so till he finds his feet properly in the fitness and all the touch. But we look. You know what? It doesn't translate, and I want to say we look better with him in the back half because currently we don't. But at full flight, he is still, in my opinion, one of the better centre half backs, and we'll show that in time. We will switch our attention to this week's game. Anzac Day debuts for a number of players. Big stage. This game couldn't be more important to the club. if there was a premiership on the line right now. It is huge. This is D-Day almost. What are we thinking? What are we expecting to see? And should we expect anything more than what we've gotten in the last couple of weeks?
Oh, well, we should hope and we should expect more, absolutely. But we should also be worried that we won't get it in a way. Look, we're a much better team than what we're displaying, and we will show that at some point. And I'm just hopeful it's going to be this week. And someone said on the board this week, it might just don't be surprised if the trigger goes off and we win by 10 goals or something. And that's really what I'd love to see. I do worry a bit that Reid and Cloak aren't right, and if they're not right and they're out, then we are going to be susceptible. I fear for us losing, but I expect we should win.
What about you, Magpie Girl? You are the optimist among us, and we need that. What are we thinking?
Look, I don't think you can doubt the effort of the team. I think I just felt they were panicking last week and making woeful mistakes as a result, but it wasn't through a kind of lack of trying most of the time. I would just love to see the team gel and get a bit of rhythm happening, and if we go down, then go down valiantly kind of thing. Make it. I hope it's a contest. I think that's really a well fought and well executed kind of contest. That would be good to see. On Monday morning, I looked at the back of both papers. The Herald Sun says walk of shame, and and the Age said Sunday, bloody Sunday. I think it's outrageous the way the media refers to the team sometimes, and we do have these expectations of them. We all want them to win, but if they have to lose, then I suppose it's a bit of a oxymoron or something. But at least lose proudly or something. That makes sense.
Look, to my mind, yeah, definitely. Look, to my mind, if there's ever a day and a time to make a statement that as a playing group you have a belief and a care and a love for your coach and a respect for your coach, this is the stage to show up and be counted on to deliver and put in a performance where your supporters can look and be proud of you for that. But more so, if you respect and really, really, this is a day that the whole club needs to stand up, and everyone that goes out there on Monday needs to go out with the attitude that they won't leave the G on Monday with anything less than 4 points, because I don't think any of us will expect any less than that, frankly. It's been great. This is a short session tonight, so we will wrap up. Thank you, GC, for coming on. Hopefully, when we reconvene next week, we'll have a brighter note or a brighter tone through the whole podcast.
Absolutely. It might be our turning point this week.
Let's hope so. Magpie Girl, thank you. Magpie Girl, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Marty, too.
And we'll chat next week. Laurie, thanks again for the recording as always.
Thank you.
Until next week, it's Mighty T. Mighty T signing out.